And as we watch these Ottawa demonstrations continuing, now nearly into 3 weeks, Mayor John Tory joins me now with the very latest on what's happening there and what we're watching here in Toronto. Mayor Tory, good morning to you.
Good morning, Val.
Let's begin here. What we're seeing in Ottawa, indeed, we're seeing an increased police presence out here on our streets. First, it was blocking some roads and now sort of monitoring. Are we ready for more? Because I don't think this will be the end.
Well, I think that's been the key all the way along. Thanks to the good planning work done by our police service under the leadership of Chief Raymer, we've had plans in place for each of the weekends, and they're all different depending on, like the first weekend, there was a sort of guaranteed protest that took place. The second weekend was less certain. But the bottom line is we've had plans in place to keep people safe, to keep the hospitals open and accessible to people, and to make sure the city is not unduly disrupted. And, you know, we've had a great relationship as between the city and the police service to help them with some of the heavy vehicles you see and just about anything that they want to make sure the city is kept safe. That's our responsibility, and we're doing our very best, and we will continue to do our very best to, to achieve that objective.
I know you had a relationship with Chief Slowly from Ottawa Police, who was deputy chief here in the city of Toronto. Your reaction to his resignation, and do you think that he could have done anything differently?
Well, I'm not in a position to know that. I knew Peter Slowly from Civic Action, where I was the chair, and he was on the board, and of course as a deputy chief of the police. And he's a very good person. But look, these things happen. There's lots of occasions where people end up out of their jobs because of circumstances that occur on their watch, and that's what goes with leadership positions. But I will just say that. The relationship between a mayor, a city council, a police board, and a police chief is one of the most important in terms of keeping big cities or smaller cities safe. And in this case, obviously, that wasn't working, so they made a change. And it's one of those things where you just got to keep moving forward and keep making sure that those people who are engaged in lawless acts in Ottawa and are disrupting the lives of people in that city and the economy and the country are in some way, brought to justice or otherwise, convinced to move on.
Let's talk about moving forward. Premier Ford, in his words, saying, it's time to move on. Are you there? Are you in that mindset that it is time to move on? Toronto residents, the reopening, we've got the next stage happening tomorrow. Are you in that place?
Yes, I'm going to be having a news conference today to talk about how we're planning again to reopen the counters for city business, reopen some of our city buildings into March, reopen our recreation programs for the spring. It is a time for us to move forward. But I mean, I've always said you do it based on the advice of your medical and science professionals, which it is what we're doing. And we're taking the lead from the province because they've had their own advice on that. We've heard from Dr. Moore. And so I think the watchword is to continue to do this on a safe and cautious basis, but to move forward nonetheless, because, the numbers have been improving. We do have to try to return every aspect of life to as close to normal as we can, as soon as we can, but do it carefully. So that's exactly what we're doing as a city. That's what we'll continue to do, but we will be advised at all times by the wisdom and knowledge of our medical officer of health and her team, who I think have seen us through this pandemic very, very well.
Mayor Tory, do we have a picture of, sadly, a lot of businesses have gone under over the last couple of years. Do we have a picture of what that looks like when all is said and done?
Well, it's not a pretty picture. I think what you found is that the downtown has suffered the worst, especially places like the Underground, because just nobody's been in those office buildings. I was in the Underground myself yesterday, and there were literally 2 people there, normally a thriving place. And of course, all those businesses rely on people being there. So we've got our job to do. There's been some damage done to what I'll call Main Street as well. Main Street not meaning just Yonge Street, but the main streets of different neighborhoods across the city. So we have a new small business tax rate. We're doing various things to try and promote people getting back to supporting local. And I repeat my message I've had for quite a long time now, dine local, take out local, shop local, if you possibly can. And we're just going to have to work in partnership with those businesses, mostly smaller businesses, to help them get back on their feet. Because a lot of them may be closed for now, but they're still in business. Mm-hmm. Others have closed down entirely, but those are the ones we have to try and nurture back, the ones that are closed temporarily, and get customers coming back and get some support to them in terms of marketing the fact they still exist and supporting them. And that's an individual decision as much as it is anything the government can do.
Finally, for you, Mayor Tory, we continue to learn more. Staff, students at David and Mary Thompson Collegiates are now at home, remote learning. There's counseling available. A 14-year-old charged with first-degree murder and attempted murder, a life lost, an 18-year-old. You mentioned yesterday a note about the school resource program and whether or not this may have made a difference in a situation like this. I don't know, but clearly we have a problem here with young people getting their hands on guns. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, but that's at the root of this, really. I mean, you could have had the police officers in school. That was a program I strongly supported, and the school board made a different decision to take those officers out of the school. I think they were building trust. I think they were, trying to get on top of some of these situations before they arose. But the real question is, how can it be that a 14-year-old or a teenager of any age can get their hands on a gun? How can it be that they felt it was okay to put it in their pocket and carry it to school? And then how can it be, finally, and worst of all, that they would use it? And I think that is something we have to come to grips with. And that's a very complicated matter that does have to do with the supply of guns across the border illegally. It has to do with some of the underlying causes of violence, and we're trying very hard. We've got a new program called SafeTO that tries to get everybody at the table: the school board, the United Way, the city itself, the police, to talk about how you can almost one by one take kids that are falling onto the wrong side of the line and bring them back. But the real problem is the supply of guns. The officer program, I think we'll have to discuss whether there's some program like that or something different that is going to help with security in schools. But I certainly wouldn't say that if that program had still been in place, this wouldn't have happened. You can't say that. It's a very complicated matter without easy answers. It's heartbreaking. It's just not something you can accept for a second, and we won't, and we don't.
Mayor Tory, as always, I appreciate your time with us. I'll talk to you again next week, Thursday. No, okay. Wednesday. I got the day straight. We're going to mute over to Dina and Sid. Thank you.
Okay. Good.
So used to the Thursday tradition. It's now Wednesday. Mayor Tory, great to see you. One question off the front. I know we like to have fun in this segment, but I do have a semi-serious question about commuting into the city on a weekend. I understand how serious the protests have been for major cities, and you and Chief Raymer have done a tremendous job. My question to you is, because I kind of got caught in that last weekend without knowing the Gardiner was down, and I'm sure there are a lot of people watching, whether it was a DVP or the Gardiner, they weren't aware of that. What would you suggest for someone like me over the next few weekends? I mean, what's your feeling here without giving up too much intel, obviously? Because I don't plan on sitting in 2.5 hours of traffic again. If I'm going to if the next few weekends are going to be like that, I'll just let it breathe and I'll just stay home. And I'm sure a lot of people might do the same. What would you suggest?
Well, the best I can suggest, in all seriousness, is to stay on top of the news, because I've done, I think, a very good job of communicating what we have to do. And those larger arteries were only closed as a means of trying to stop a flow of heavy trucks into the downtown core where they might set up a protest like we've seen in Ottawa. And I think one of the reasons that our police service is to be commended, and I've worked very closely with the chief on this planning, is because they had plans in place to make sure that kind of situation to the greatest extent possible. And I said this very publicly. Our objective was to make sure the things we saw in Ottawa and Windsor were not repeated here. And so those roads were closed for short periods of time when it was thought maybe there were trucks and other vehicles coming into the city via that route, and to stop them from doing that and kind of direct them elsewhere. So I can just say that I'm sorry for the inconvenience that it caused people. I hope they have patience with us, but I hope they also realize it's for a broader objective, which is to keep the whole city safe, to keep the hospital row operating properly so people can come and go who are sick or who are working in hospitals, and to generally stop a situation from arising to the best extent we can, like we've seen in Ottawa, because I just don't think we need to have that here. And so far, so good.
All here on that. And again, great job by yourself and Chief Raymer for getting that done, because this is not the city where you want to see that for a lot of reasons. It would be a disaster.
Were you on your way to a pool party when you got
Oh, wow. What a segue.
There he is.
Okay, we got 30 seconds here. Let's lighten it up here on the back end. There's the smile. Dina Pugliese is a beach person.
All the way.
I am a city person. In another life, when Mayor Tory had time off, which he doesn't have now, but in another life, were you a city vacationer or a beach vacation?
Oh, a bit of both. I mean, everybody enjoys being in the sun, especially in wintertime, and I certainly enjoy being in the city. There's lots to do here. I don't share. There are times when a bath, a shower is fast and efficient, and as you say, everything just sort of washes off you. But there are times when a bath is very relaxing, and so I think you should try and get over that. It'll reduce your over level of tension. I can see the tension sometimes.
You know what it is,
it's just overcoming you.
When your skin is as supple as Sid Sixero. He's
That's
like, I don't need no stinking bath. But you're right. For tension purposes, he might want to look into a little Epsom salt soak.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you.
That face of his is like a baby's bottom. It's unbelievable.
Right? That's why he forgets how old he is.
I marvel every time I see him through the miracles of modern technology. He looks at least 6 months younger than the 45 years that he claimed.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. Well, not 45 yet. I'm still hammering that age out thing this morning.
Sorry.
HD's not
and there's not a number of baths on Earth that can sometimes soothe my tension, Mayor Tory. I don't know if there's a number I can hit, but I'll try it. You know what? I'll give it a go.
Give it a go.
I'll give it a go. Mayor Tory,
Mayor
it's been a busy
Tory.
week.
Thanks.
We appreciate the time. Take care, sir.
Have a great day. Bye-bye now.